Hello there YouTube, this is Rogue Gem Player and coming at you with an Ice Barrier deck profile. This is before the new dual terminal, Battles of Legends set that's supposed to come out in just over a week and a half, just about a week and a half now. So I thought I'd bring you what I would be playing for Ice Barriers if I was to play it right now. I will be profiling it again when the new support comes out, but I thought I'd bring what I've got now, how someone could probably be playing at this moment in time. So if you like it, you know, to each their own, but this is how the deck is going to be played. So first things first, we're going to start with 3 copies of General Wayne of the Ice Barrier, otherwise known as the X-Saber Wayne. That is probably originally from the Ice Barriers, but who knows. So the main thing with this is when it's on board, spell and traps sent from the field to the grave that are your opponents are banished. So that's one thing. But we play a couple cards in this deck that allow us to special discard, even off of its own effect, which does add a Ice Barrier spell trap. So keep that in mind if we ever get more support. We are getting a new trap, and then Medallion's getting reprinted with an alternate art. So this searches basically anything in the deck, because Medallion searches any monster. So keep that in mind. It is level 5. So for the normal summons, or the main normal summon is Revealer of the Ice Barrier. This is your best card in the entire deck. The reason being is that when she's summoned, or when she's on board, you discard a card, special an Ice Barrier tuner from the deck. You are locked to water monsters for the rest of the turn, which is the reason why the extra deck is going to be very specific in how we do this, because quite frankly, certain cards lock you pretty hard, so we're just taking advantage of that fact. And then when she's in the graveyard, she can substitute a discard for an activation, which is kind of important. And then your opponent can't tribute summon if you have another Ice Barrier on board, so keep that in mind. Each of them have a side type of floodgate effect that kind of comes in handy when you have it. So 3 copies of Speaker, the Ice Barrier. She is kind of like your Aqua Spirit, in a way, where or Extender, where if you control an Ice Barrier, you can special summon it. And then when you have an Ice Barrier on your field, you can banish this card to special a token. So it automatically gives you Link material, Exceed material. So she become Exceed fodder, and then you can, once you've used her or whatnot, you can turn her into a token, which can either be used as Synchro or Link material. So pretty cool. And then kind of mostly targets for Revealer are 2 copies of Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier, and then 1 Cryomancer and 1 copy of Defender. The reason why these are in here is they are the targets you summon off of Revealer. At least currently, we do get a level 6 tuner in the next set, which is a Wing Beast. But for now, this is what you got to play. Hexa can dump either a level 3 or level 2 to level modulate, which is actually kind of cool. Being able to level modulate means you don't actually have to summon that respective one. It also thins out your deck of card, which can also be used to combine with things like your Freezing Chains, to bring back a card so you can get 2 tuners in field, so you can kind of Synchro Ladder, Link Ladder, whatever you need to do. So. And then for the last Ice Barrier monster, we're playing 3 copies of Prior. Prior is probably one of the best cards and also one of the worst, and here is why. So, on field, you contribute to special an Ice Barrier from the graveyard. The problem is his in-hand effect to special summon himself when you control an Ice Barrier locks you out of anything higher than level 5, which kind of sucks, because there's a lot of high-level monsters you can summon off of it. So, I mean, you can use it as Link material and stuff like that. It just, is okay. Which, it is up to you if you want to play more copies of it. But the fact that it says when it's on board, you can bring back any Ice Barrier. So, like, for example, you can bring back Wayne to search again on a following turn. There's also a lot of effects where if you bring this card back, you can just kind of do other things. So it can become any level you pretty much want. And then I'm playing a small fish package, which is the form of 3 copies of Abyss Shark and 3 copies of Fishborg Harpooner. Because if you control a water monster, you can special summon the Abyss Shark from hand, and then immediately he adds a level 4, 3, 4, or 5 fish. So you can add Harpooner, and Harpooner is unique in that you can reveal this card in a water monster, okay, in your hand, and then you special summon one of them, discard the other. So, and then he's also level 4 tuner, which is kind of important. So this allows you to get things like Wayne out of your hand if you don't have a way of getting it. So this is a good way of going first in this deck. So, and then for non-engine, 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Ash. You have to play these, in my opinion. You might be considered taking the Nibirus out because people are just starting to play out of them, but Ash is always something you should always be playing. So keep that in mind. For spells, we're playing 3 copies of Medallion, which is your Rhoda for the deck. It is getting a reprint with an alternate art in the dual terminal set. So keep that in mind if you are looking for like most likely a hollow version of this card. I'm sure that they're going to reprint a hollow version of it in the same set of this version of it. So it gets you to wherever you need, and it's searchable by Wayne. So, and then 3 copies of Winds Over the Ice Barrier. So this is actually one of the few reasons why you can kind of play prior using its special summon effect, because it gets you another monster on board. This card becomes a lot better when we get the new Mirror of the Ice Barrier, which is summons a bunch of tokens. But what this card does is you tribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters on your board. You special summon that many level 4 or lower from the deck with different names from each other. What makes this unique is that you can trade out, the tokens, especially the one that Speaker gives you. You can tribute that to give you a monster that you can use. And then when this card is in the graveyard, except the turn that it was sent there, you can banish it, recur a Ice Barrier back to your hand that's in your graveyard or banished. So good for recursion on the second turn. And then 3 copies of Freezing Chain. It's basically a reborn that you can bounce back to your hand through Delorn. And then while you control 3 more Ice Barriers, Ice Barrier monsters are unaffected by your opponent's monsters that were special from the extra deck. So this prevents all the extra deck monsters from basically harming your monsters. So that's kind of cool. And it's continuous, which is good with Delorn to bounce back to reuse its effect. And then we're playing 1 copy of Called by the Grave as our random, one of non-engine spell. We are playing what's known as the Armored Xyz package, which is the form of Xyz Force and the 1 copy of Full Armored Xyz. Basically, what you're doing with this is we play a copy of Bahamut Shark, which we use to rank up. I'll explain how this card works in just a sec when we get to the extra deck. So I'll set these cards aside and we'll go back to them in just a moment. And then playing 3 copies of Impermanence, because it's the best one. It's better than Effect Veiler because it's harder to stop, and also has the potential of negating spell traps in the same column when you set it. So for the extra deck, there's a lot of options, but one of the things you have to understand is if you use Revealer's Effect, you're locked to waters. If you use Abyss Shark, you lock to waters. If you use Prior of the Ice Barrier, you're locked to level 4 or lower monsters, so you have to use the Xyz package. So there's a lot of restrictions. The deck will change drastically, or you can when the new stuff comes out. But you also can play other things. I've heard you can use the Crystron Synchro, the level 4 Synchro tuner. Let me find it real quick. I know I have it set aside somewhere. There it is. You can play the Crystron Quandrax, kind of like a level 4 where you can kind of quick sync to use things like Trishula on your opponent's turn and other cards in the extra deck that we play in this to basically disrupt your opponent on your opponent's turn. I'm not playing it in this one just because that's all it really does. It doesn't really help your game state. It just kind of gets you out of really awkward hands when you open up prior. So, first Delorn, pretty good card. Bouncing your Freezing Chains, your continuous stuff. You can even bounce monsters to return them, so you can reuse effects if you need to. The one Brionac, you discard to bounce opponent's cards. It's a good, search. Gungnir, same thing. You can use it to destroy cards. It's also level 7. One Trish and then one Zero Dragon Trish. I'm playing one of each of the Ice Barrier Synchros because one, they're in theme. Two, they help trigger your other Ice Barrier monsters like Revealer and stuff like that, because you need to have another Ice Barrier on the field with them in order to use their effects, and also makes Freezing Chains a lot easier to control because it also makes Freezing Chains protect these guys. So, and then this is just really broken because it floats into this and also trigger its effect, so you can pretty much get rid of a bunch of cards. One Dragite, the one White Aura Whale. This is an Omni Negate. This can nuke your opponent's board when it's summoned. Also, it attacks twice and does piercing damage, which is actually pretty important. The one Shenying and the one Ice Jade Grimir Agreen, or whatever. I gotta remember how to pronounce that. What makes these cards really important is that they're water monsters that can be summoned off of the Omni Lock. So keep that in mind. And then we're playing the one Marincess Coral Enemy, because it is another card that you can use that's still locks you into waters, unfortunately. But it is something that you can play because you can bring back one of the low attack point water monsters like Prior and stuff like that. And then for the Xyz package, we're playing the one Bahamut Shark, the one Toad to start that off. And then when the Bahamut Shark is used up, you play a copy of Xyz Armor Fortress, Full Armor Crystal Zero Lancer, and then one Full Armor Dark Knight Lancer. So let me get to these three guys. So this is the reason why we play Xyz Force and the Full Armor Xyz. So what you do is you make the Bahamut Shark, you use its effect to summon the Toad, and then you rank this up into Xyz Armor Fortress. Then you use its effect to detach the Bahamut Shark to add Xyz Force. So what you do is then you activate the Xyz Force to dump Full Armor Xyz to your hand. And what this card does is you can then go into Full Armor Crystal Zero Lancer, detach, negate your opponent's monster board if they've got stuff you can negate. If not, you just go right into Dark Knight Lancer afterwards. And what this does is it gives you a 34 attack point monster that, when summoned, once per turn, you could just add this back to your hand, and what this card does, or you can add this back to your hand, or just really whatever you want, or you can just leave them in the graveyard because you banish this during your opponent's turn to attach, and then it triggers his effect to suck up a monster. And then Xyz Force is in here because what you can do with it, let's say you detach for the Crystal Lancer, you can attach this, and then you can use the Xyz Force. You can banish it to bring this back, and all of a sudden now you have two monsters on board that can poke for a lot of damage. So it's a good way of poking for damage if you really need it. So, but yeah, that's the deck for the most part, guys. It changes quite drastically when the new support comes out. There's a lot of options, dude. There's a lot of ways you can play this deck. It really depends on how you want to build it. You play with Runics. There's a lot of engines, but keep in mind that it does waterlock you because of their better cards that do come out. So let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.